Thank you guys so much for coming to our meeting today. For week 4, we have an Excel workshop that we can't wait to get started. So our tentative schedule for the rest of the quarter, today we have the Excel workshop, and then next 2 weeks we have industry speakers from the Federal Reserve and Ernst & Young Consulting coming. And then week 6, Tuesdays, we will start our practice sessions where participants will be doing more hands-on analysis with Excel. And then week 7 and week 8, we have our stats workshop and Tableau workshop. And then week 8, Tuesday, we have stats practice session, which is going to be similar to Excel one, more hands-on stuff. And then week 9, we have another duo of technical workshops and technical practice sessions, with Python being our workshop and Tableau being our practice session.
And then we have another opportunity for you guys. The deadline for being a career peer advisor was extended until January 31st. So you can still apply for this. You must be an incoming junior or senior. It's going to be approximately 10 to 12 hours of work per week. And then a few things to expect that you're going to do are do resume and cover letter review, interview and career fair preparation, and coordinate internships and concentration panels. So those are some of the things that you could expect to do within this position. And you also need to make sure that if you're trying to apply, you don't already hold another OQUAC position.
So as you guys know, every quarter, OCOP puts on concentration panels. And so basically what the concentration panels are that upperclassmen who are in the concentrations in the business college talk about the concentration. So you get to ask them questions and things like that. So the concentration panel for quantitative analysis is on Tuesday the 16th. So if you still haven't declared your concentration and are interested in quantitative analysis, definitely check that out. It's a really good opportunity to learn more about the concentration. And then also, if you can't wait until the concentration panel and have any questions about the concentration, feel free to message anyone from the board. We'll be happy to answer any of your questions. So the internship that we are highlighting this week is the Business Intelligence Analyst internship from Hewlett-Packard. So for this role, you'll be performing analysis with operation data and working across the supply chain functional teams. And you'll be doing a lot of work with Microsoft Office tools such as SharePoint BI, Power Apps, SQLs, and Excel, things like that. And they're looking for someone that's in their 3rd year, and it'll take place in Houston. So if this internship sounds interesting to you, definitely check it out. There was no deadline listed on the website, but make sure you apply soon, just in case.
And as always, feel free to contact us at our Instagram or Gmail. Our Instagram is @CalPolyQuack. Our Gmail is cpquack@gmail.com. And on the right, if you scan the QR code there, it brings you to the mailing list where you can be updated on weekly events and meetings. Also, be sure to join our Slack channel. Our Slack channel offers great internship opportunities, weekly updates on meetings, workshops, speakers, and all that. So I'll post the QUAC Slack channel in the Zoom chat right there, and you can get connected there.
So today I was just going to introduce. Yeah, so today we have our Excel workshop hosted by Adrian and Michaela from the board. And here are some of the few things that we are going to cover.
Perfect. So I'm just going to share my screen. Let's see. Is that shared with all you guys?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. So today I'm going to go over a couple text functions, some text editing, some dates and times, just some things you might use in the workplace. I know last Excel workshop we covered average if, some functions, VLOOKUP, pivot tables. So these are just kind of extra little things you might end up using when you get your internship or your job. And Michaela will later cover data analysis and keyboard shortcuts. So what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to write some names of just some streets in SLO. So we're going to start off with Highland. Let's go. Choro, Cuesta, Monterey, Foothill, Los Osos, Pismo, Avila, Albert, Orange Street, and let's go High Street. Perfect. So I'm also gonna put formula text here just so you guys can see what formulas I'm typing in right there. It's gonna show up NA right now, but after I type in a formula here, it'll show up. So the first thing I'm gonna go over today is the search function. What that does is essentially it shows what you're looking for, and so if you're looking for a certain character within your text, it shows you where that is and produces a character number to begin with. So if I go equals search, so basically what am I searching within Highland? So I'm gonna search, let's say I'm gonna go a and let's actually add an st here. Hold on. Let's go Highland Street right there. So the thing about the search function that's cool is that the search function is not case sensitive, so it doesn't matter if it's capitalized or lowercase. You go and search, find the text and st, within which text. We're going to click on Highland Street, which is A2, and we're going to close that. Perfect. And it will say 6, meaning A and ST starts on the 6 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 is A, and that's what we're looking for right there. ANDST. Ooh, let me change these to A or B2 actually. Perfect. Gotcha. So same thing, however, this one I'm gonna, or above that, I'm gonna write if error. So essentially, if the letters aren't in Highland Street and it comes up as an error, what do we want it to say? We can combine the if error and search function here. So I'm gonna start off with if error. So essentially, if it comes up as an error, what comes up as an error? The search function that we just searched up. Let's search A and S D S T. That's not going to show up because it's not within Highland Street right there. And we search this text box. And what value do we want to show? If it's an error, let's say we want it to show the word nothing. Close parentheses, close brackets, enter, and it'll say nothing because the function we typed in ANSDST right here is not in Highland Street. Next function is find. The thing about find is that it is case sensitive. It acts just like search, but you do need to capitalize the letters you're finding. So if I go find, I type in the same thing we typed in search in the second row. And let's go boom. It's not going to come up because it is case sensitive. So I'm going to need to capitalize the S, and it'll show up as 6 just like what we did earlier because I did capitalize the S right there. The next function I can show you guys is find, or not find, sorry, left. What left does is it shows how many characters to the left side of the word or of whatever sentence you have. So let's say I want it to show CUES. I'm going to write left, and then it says what text. I'm going to click on the text right there, and how many characters do I want it to show from the left side? I'm going to say, let's say we want CUES, so four characters, close parentheses, and boom, it'll show that. Same thing with Monterey. I can do the same thing, but this time I'm going to do right, so meaning how many letters from the right side. I'm going to do right, click on Monterey, and how many characters do I want? Let's say I want 5 characters, TEREY. I'm going to click 5, close parentheses, enter, and it'll show TEREY. Perfect. And the other function I'm going to show you guys is the mid function, which essentially is a combination of both the left and the right. It chooses something from the middle of the function. So let's go down to foothill right here. And I'm going to enter mid. And it'll ask me, what text do I want? So I'm going to choose this text right here. What do I want it to start with? So let's say I want this foothill just to write 2 O's, the 2 O's in the middle of F and T. So I'm going to start on the second character, which is O. And how many characters do I want after that? So I want 2 characters after that, OO, close parentheses, enter, and it will show OO, which is pretty cool. Another cool function, the upper function, essentially what it does is just capitalizes everything. So I'm going to write upper, click on the cell, close parentheses, enter, and Los Osos turns all capitalized. Same thing, but on the other hand, you're going to want to lowercase all the letters. What you do is put lower. Same thing, click on the text, boom. It'll lower Pismo right there for you. Ooh, I'm not sure why we have 2 right there. Let's delete this row. There we go. And the next one I'm going to do is proper. What proper is it capitalizes the first letter of the word. So if we want Avila capitalized A and then VILA, we write equals proper. Same thing, pretty simple. We just click on the text on the left right there, close parentheses, boom, and Avila turns into a proper word, proper noun. Next one, Albert. Essentially for Albert right here, I'm going to teach you guys the substitute function. What that does is it substitutes a certain letters in Albert with a new text that you want. So let's say instead of Albert, I want Dalbert, D-A-L-B-E-R-T. We're going to click on the text on the left right there. What was the old text that we want to substitute? I want to substitute A-L, and what do I want to replace that with? Let's say I want to replace it with D-A-L to come out as Dalbert. Close parentheses, enter, and now it'll turn into Dalbert instead of Albert. Or replace the AL with the DAL. Next function is trim. Trim is pretty simple as well. Essentially, it just eliminates spaces if you have 2 spaces within a word, or if you have a space that's unnecessary. So you see the space right there before orange. We don't need that. We're going to write trim, parentheses, pretty simple as well. Click on the cell, and boom, it'll take out the space in front of orange, only put 1 space in front of street, and it'll essentially make it how you want it to be, so it's easily read and more proper. The last function I'm going to show you guys is length. Length, you don't have to type out length. Essentially what it is just len, but it just shows you how many letters there are in the cell you're highlighting. So if I choose high street, right, or just high right there, close parentheses, it'll write 5. That's because I have an extra space right there. Take out the space, and it should be 4, just like that. So I'm also gonna go over some dates and times you might need. All the functions, if you guys want to see, they're all right here on the right that I performed right here. Perfect. So some functions I'm gonna go over for dates and times. Let's put the functions right here. Equals function text function. Ooh, text or formula text. My bad. There we go. Drag that down a little bit. Perfect. So essentially the first function I'm going to show is the date function. What it does is just produce a date for you. So if you open the parentheses right there, it'll say what year do you want? Let's say we want 2021. Let's go with my birthday, August and the 21st day. Boom, it'll turn that into a date right there as you see. Oops, right there. And the function right here I put is date 2021, 8/21. Now there's also a time function just like that. You write time and it will ask for the hour, minute, and seconds similar to the date. This is for the time. This does go by military time. So let's say you want 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you're gonna have to type 15. So let's say we want 3 o'clock, or let's do 3:30. 3:30, type 30 minutes, and seconds doesn't really matter. Just write 15. It'll show 3:30 p.m. Now, if you just want 3:30 a.m., you just write 3 right there. It'll turn it to 3:30 a.m., which is pretty cool. The next function I'm going to show is eDate. eDate is essentially the end date. So how many months you want to add to the date given. So let's say from August 21st, we want to add 2 months to that date. We're going to write equals eDate. These are some functions you might use in the workplace. I've heard that they use it a lot on Excel spreadsheets they have of just calendars and all that. So eDate, we're going to write the start date as my birthday right there. And how many months do we want to add to that? We're going to add 2 months to make it October 21st. Close parentheses, enter. And this will show up as a number because it's not in the date format. So we're going to click right here in the middle of the screen on the home ribbon. We're going to click short date. Let's see if it works. There we go. 10/21/21. So 2 months after the cell we chose. So 2 months after August 21st. Same thing. There's a function called EO month, end of month. Essentially what this does is it's the same thing as EDate. However, instead of going from the date you want it to go from, like so 2 months after August 21st, it's going to go 2 months from the end of August 21st, or from the end of the month August. So it's going to go from August 31st. So end of month, start date, like that, 2 months as well. And you'll see this, instead of showing up as 10/21/21, it'll show up as 10/31. Why? Because it's the end of the month of August. So right here it goes from August 31st, and 2 months after that. That's the end of the month function. Just some simple ones that come in pretty handy. You have the day function, which essentially just shows what the day is. So let's go 10/31/21 day. What's the date? Or 31st. And then you got the month function. You guys can pretty much assume what that will come out as. 10. And the year function. Click on the date and it'll show 2021. Perfect. So the next thing that'll show is a weekday. So if we go weekday function, it'll show you what weekday is. Let's put a random date here actually. Equals date. Let's go today's date. For today's date, you just write now. And it'll write the now. It'll write the date and the time right now. So right here we're just gonna go weekday. Click on the cell right here, and boom, it's going to come up as a 5. Why is it going to come up as a 5? It's because according to Excel, the dates go like this. Monday, let's see if that copies down. There we go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So today is Thursday. That's why it's going to come out as a 5 right there. This is how the numbers and the dates line up. So Sunday is number 1, Saturday is 7, and it goes in that order. So if this comes out as 5, what weekday is today? The cell that we chose, it is a Thursday, so it'll come up as 5. I went over the now function right here. I can just write that out for you guys. Oops, formula text. Boom. And it'll show you that's the now function. The next function I'll show is week number. So what week number is it today within the year? So if I go equals week num, meaning week number, we're going to choose the serial number, which is essentially the date we want. I'm going to choose today, enter, and it'll choose 5. Why? If you look on all your calendars, this is actually the 5th week of the year, 5th week in January and 5th week of the year. So it'll come up as 5 versus if you chose another date, let's say instead of F20, instead of F21, let's say we wanted something like October 31st. That's the 45th week of the year. So it'll come up as 45. Some other cool functions in the workplace that they often use are network days. So if you go network days, it essentially, what network days shows you is essentially how many network days do you have from your start date to your end date. So our start date, let's say our start date will be today, and our end date will be October 31st, 2021, close parentheses, enter. So they're essentially saying there's 197 work days between those two dates, excluding weekends. The weekends are not included. So Saturday and Sunday are not part of the 197 right there. However, if you want to more specify your work days, let's say you get Wednesdays and Thursdays off instead of Sundays and Saturdays and Sundays, you go network days .intl. You're going to go start date, same thing, today, end date. Let's go 10/31. and it asks you to specify your weekends right here. So what weekends do you have? Let's say my weekend is a Wednesday and Thursday. It'll show up as the same thing, or I guess there's one more work day. But one thing that's cool about this as well is you get to enter any holidays that you have. So if you have certain holidays that do not count as work days, you can enter that in and it'll lower the number or increase the number depending on what you do. But yeah, these are the functions right here. If you have any questions about this, feel free to contact us on our Gmail or Instagram. But yeah, pretty simple. A lot of these follow this chart right here, so that's pretty cool. And yeah, Michaela will go over some data analysis tools now.
Okay, so let me share my screen. Let's see. Okay, is that working?
Yeah, it looks good.
Okay, cool. So the first thing I'm going to go over is just a few of the important keyboard shortcuts. So I know it seems kind of silly, but a lot of times if you're using Excel, like for a job or for an internship, you're going to want to know how to speed up the process. It's kind of tedious to go through and by hand do the selections that you want. So if I wanted to select travel time, it's kind of tedious to go all the way down to the bottom, right? So keyboard shortcuts are really important. And it also makes you look smarter and makes you look like you know what you're doing. So they're kind of important. The ones that you probably already know, but they're important to highlight are Command S for saving. This is important to do constantly throughout when you're working. The worst thing ever is when your computer crashes and you lose all your work. So Command S is something you should just do consistently throughout your work. And then Control Print is a good one. And then again, all of these for, if you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command instead of Control. So for a Mac, Command P is going to bring up, I don't know if you can see it, but basically a little print preview. So if you want to kind of preview your data, how it would print, that's a little bit helpful. Another one is Control T or Command T. So if you want to turn some of your cells into a table, this is a good way to do it. So let's say these ones I want to turn into a table. If I hit Control T or Command T and then hit OK, it's just going to turn that section into a table. You know it's a table because of the coloring. It has these drop-down menus. That is just a much easier way than having to do insert table. Another important one is if you're navigating through a huge data set, sometimes it's hard to know where you are. So say if you want to go to the upper left corner. So on Windows, this is going to be Control Home. And on a Mac, it's going to be FN, Control, and then the left arrow. And it's going to go to A1. It's going to go to the top left corner. So that's a little bit important. And then same thing, if you want to go to the bottom right corner, maybe you want to see how many rows or columns you have. If you do FN, Control, and then right arrow, it's going to bring you to the bottom right of your data set. So those are helpful to know just to navigate through. Another thing, if you want to just go like from to the top of your data set or bottom, if you do Command up arrow or Command down arrow, that's an easy way to do it. And then say you want to go up or down, but you want to select. If you're on a Windows, you're going to want to do Control. Actually, I think it's the same. Control Shift down. So Command Shift down for a Mac will select that entire row. You can see that whole thing selected. And then what are some other ones we have? So if you want to select the entire column and not just where your data is, that's when you can do for a Windows, it's going to be Control Space, and it's going to be Command for Mac. So if you do Command Space, sorry, I'm on my other screen. Control Space for a Mac, sorry. And then it's also Control Space for Windows. We'll just select that entire column past where your data set ends. So that is sometimes helpful if you want to select a column. And then if you want to select a row, it's going to be Shift Space, and that'll select the entire row that you're looking at. So it just goes based off of where your mouse is. If you do Shift Space, it'll choose your entire row there. And then you can see we have multiple worksheets down here. We have student data and solver example. So if you're trying to shift between worksheets and you don't want to scroll all the way down, if you're on a Windows, you can do Control page up or page down to go between. And if you're on a Mac, you can do FN, Control, up arrow or down arrow, and you can go between your worksheets. And then if you want to select your entire worksheet, if you do Command A, that will select all of your data. Notice when you just hit it once, it stops at where your data stops. If you hit it again, it'll do your entire worksheet. So depending on what you want to do, you can hit A different amount of times. Okay, so those are just some keyboard shortcuts. Highly recommend practicing them as you need to. They're kind of hard to memorize if you're not practicing them. So use them as you do your work. So let's go in and I'll show you guys some data analysis tools there are. Let me just make sure my screen fits in here. Okay, so the data analysis tools in Excel don't automatically show up. So if you go to the data tab and look over at the right-hand corner, you can see mine says data analysis and solver. Most likely yours probably doesn't, but it's easy to fix. So if you hit that analysis tools button, it's going to bring up a pop-up screen for add-ins. It's going to say there's one for analysis tool pack and there's one for the solver add-in. If you click both of those buttons, highlight both, and then hit OK, it's going to add data analysis and solver to your data ribbon. So those are going to be there for you now from now on. So we can go through just a couple of the options that those give you. There's a lot of options. So I'll just go through just a few of the most important ones quickly here. One of them is summary statistics. So this is going to bring up things similar to what you've seen in other statistical softwares from other classes. So if you hit data analysis and then scroll up, there should be a choice for descriptive statistics. So hit that and press OK. And now it's going to bring up that pop-up tab. Hopefully, can you guys see that in the screen share? Is that pop-up tab working?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So for input range, if you hit that button, it's going to give you the option to select a column of what you want to look at. So let's say we want to get absences summary. So if you do Command Shift down, it's going to select that entire column, hit Enter. That's what we want to look at. And notice that we grouped it by a column. It's column we're looking at, so hit column. And the label is included in what we selected. So make sure that you have labeled in first row selected. And then output range, we're going to want to put it in a new worksheet. You could put it in the same worksheet and specify where you want it to go, but let's do new worksheet. And then I already have a title in there for the worksheet, but you can type in whatever you want your new worksheet to be titled right there. So absences summary is what I have. And then I have summary statistics selected and confidence level for mean selected. So depending on what you want to output, you can select different things there. Hit OK. And it's going to bring up a new worksheet with all of the summary statistics for the absences variable. So if you double click that, it'll bring this out so you can fully see those. But you can see we have things like mean, standard error, median, standard deviation. You have minimum and maximum for that, sum, basically everything you want. So that's really helpful just to get an idea of what data you're looking at. And then let's go back over and check out the other functions. One of them is correlation. So something interesting with this is that you can only find correlation between columns that are right next to each other. You couldn't find correlation between weekend alcohol intake and your first trimester grade because they're not next to each other. So you'd have to rearrange your data so that they're next to each other before you can do it. But let's go to the data analysis correlation, hit OK. And then our input range here, I already had it selected, but let's say we want to find the correlation between each trimester's grades. So if you select those three columns all together, Make sure it's grouped by columns. We have our labels selected. And then output range, let's put it in a new worksheet. Not sure why it's doing that. I don't know why it's not letting me do that, but if we hit new worksheet, it should just go automatically. So let's hit OK. Maybe not. That's all selected correctly. Not sure why that's not working right now, but usually if you select the columns, you can have it go to a new worksheet, and then you can label it, hit enter, and it'll bring up a correlation table. I'm not exactly sure why it's not working right now. It was every other time. Let me try it one more time and see if I can get it to work.
So it works if you choose 3 columns too.
It does work if you, yeah, you can do correlation of multiple. I was doing it last night and it was working totally fine, so I'm not sure why it's not right now. Well, let's see if we can do an output over here somewhere and see if that works. So let's just output it right next to it and hit OK. So yeah, now you can see it does the correlation table between first, second, and final trimester. Makes sense that these are going to be correlated. You can see they all have pretty high correlations there. And then there's also options for a ton of other things, some of them being histogram. That one is one that I played with a little bit. So let's see if we can pull up one for that. So let's say we want to find a histogram of the different, let's say, number of absences. So let's select that column while you're in input, I'm in output range, sorry. Select input range and then select your absences column. Hit enter. Bin range, that is basically where you can specify what you want your histograms, like the different bars, to be labeled as. So for right now, we're going to let Excel choose what it wants to do. But normally you can kind of specify what you want those bins to be. I can show you that in a second. And then our labels were included in that. Output range, let's do a new worksheet. And then let's do absences, histogram. Oops. Okay, and then it should do chart output. So if you hit OK, it's going to open up. Well, okay, maybe it won't. So cancel. I'll show you how to do the bins right now. So basically, we know, or we can find out, our minimum of absences. So our minimum amount of absences is 0. Our maximum is going to be 32. So let's say we want to have bins 0 through 5, 6 through 10. Let's do 11 through 15, 16 through 20. And then I'll just keep going on this side, 25, 30, and 35. So basically what we can do is select this as our bin input. So let's try that one more time. Do data analysis, histogram, okay. Make sure we have that selected correctly. Labels, yes. And then our bin range here, select the one above it because we have labels selected, but basically these are going to be our bins that it's going to put them in. Labels is selected, new worksheet, chart output, hit OK. And it's going to come up with a histogram of the frequency of our absences for each different amount. So you can see if we make this a little bit bigger, most students fell in the range within 0 and 5. There were very few out here. Also notice that it does this weird thing where it adds more to the bottom. If you went through and only selected on the bin output up to 30, then it's going to end here, and 35 is going to be more. And then you can redo this to say, okay, 40 is what we want it to display there. And it'll say between 35 and 40 there now. So let's go back over. You can also run regression. So let's say we want to do data analysis and then go down to regression, hit OK. So let's say we want our Y range, what we want to predict. We want to predict our final grade. So let's select Command Shift down for all our final grades, hit enter. And then our X range, say we want to predict we could do simple linear regression and just choose one variable, but Excel actually gives us the option of doing multiple regression. So let's select all of these columns between go out all the way through the first and second trimester grades, Command Shift down, get all of those columns, hit enter. And then we did select the labels, so make sure it has that selected there. Constant is 0 is just gonna, if you want the intercept to be forced to 0, but we're not gonna select that. And then output options, let's do new worksheet. I already have it named, but you can name whatever you want there. And then I'm gonna take out residual plots just because with multiple regression, it's gonna get pretty messy if we add those in. So take out the graphs and hit OK. And it's gonna bring out all of our regression output into that new worksheet. So you can see we have regression statistics, we have our R squared, relatively high. And then it's gonna bring up our ANOVA table, as well as what we're really looking for, our coefficients of all of our variables. And then keep in mind, you can look at p-value if you want to figure out, which variables are actually statistically significant. So if we do this and hit the comma up here, it's going to be easier to read, but you can see things like week alcohol consumption, going out, weekend alcohol consumption, those types of things aren't really statistically significant in our regression. So just keep those things in mind. You can also do simple linear regression if you only want one variable. And then also keep in mind, like correlation, these different variables have to be right next to each other when you select them. So say you wanted to take out the health column, you didn't want that to be a variable anymore, you'd have to rearrange your worksheet so that it's not right in the middle. And then one other thing I want to go over really quickly is the solver tool, which is another data tool that we installed. So I have included the solver example worksheet. So if you go to that, basically we're looking at a company that makes maple tables and mahogany tables. For each one, they have a number of rough hours that it takes to complete and a number of finishing hours that it takes to complete. We have our number total that you're assembling, which is what we're trying to change, the price of each table, and then revenue. So I included the formulas in this already, but basically revenue is just going to be the number assembled times price, and then we have our total revenue, which is the sum of those down here. So basically the goal of this entire thing is to maximize our revenue. So maximize our total revenue. So this box right here is what we're trying to focus on. And we're going to do that by changing how many we're assembling. So these two are what we're going to be changing. And then keep in mind that sometimes when you're doing problems like this, you're going to have constraints. So say you only have 2 workers, you only have a total of 80 hours that you can dedicate to the rough work, and you only have 30 hours that you can dedicate to finishing the tables. Let's say those are your constraints for that. And then maybe we only get enough wood for 10 mahogany tables. So that's our constraint for mahogany tables. You got to keep those constraints in mind when we're going to solve the problem. So you'll get the hang of this when I go through solver a little bit more. So if you open up the solver, it's going to give you a few things that you have to add in. I'm going to delete these real fast because they were already in there, just so we can restart fresh. So set objectives. So I already said the objective is to maximize revenue, right? So total revenue, that's the one that we're going to try and have be our objective. And then down here, hit maximize, right? Because we're trying to maximize our total revenue. And then we're going to do that by changing certain variables. So like I mentioned before, the two things that we're changing are the number of tables we're assembling. So select those two for the by changing variable cells. And then I mentioned earlier that we have some constraints. So let's add those here. Do add cell reference. So this is going to just be from here, the finished work hours. I already have the formulas in here for you, but it'll basically auto update. So our finished work hours have to be less than or equal to the constraint of finished work hours down here. So hit OK, that constraint is added. Now let's add for ref hours. Our ref work hours right here has to be less than or equal to our constraint of 80. So select that and hit OK. And then our last one that we're going to add is going to be that our mahogany supply can't be over 10. So the number of mahogany tables that we make, that has to be less than or equal to our constraint of 10 down here, and hit OK. So now we have everything in there, what we're maximizing by changing the number, and we have our constraints in there. So if you hit solve, it might take a second to load. It's being slow. It says 66% done. Okay, there we go. So it came up with a solution for us, and we'll hit OK. So now you can see that it has chosen 10 maple and 10 mahogany in order to maximize our revenue. You can play around with these. You see if you go down to 9, well, now we have less revenue, so it's not maximized. And it kept in mind all the constraints. So our finished work hours and our rough work hours are within the constraints we have, and the revenue is maximized. So basically did what we want. Some people use, instead of solver, they'll use a what if analysis goal seek. That one works too. However, you can't do 2 input variables that are changing. You can't choose to maximize. You can only choose, say you wanted to make $20,000. And then you also can't include any constraints if you use the goal seek. So that's where solver is really handy, just because it can solve a little bit more complex of problems. That might have gone a little bit fast. So if you have any questions, feel free to email or reach out. I'm happy to answer any questions. But that is all I have for you guys today.
All right, great. Thank you. Thank both of you guys so much for doing that. We hope you guys learned as much as we did, and definitely can use some of the stuff in some of the classes that you guys are going to be taking throughout Cal Poly. So before we wrap up, just a quick reminder, if you have any suggestions, you can scan the QR code and then type in whatever you feel like it needs to be improved or changed with the club. And yeah, so I'll leave that on the screen for a couple more seconds, and that will wrap up our meeting for this week. Next week, we have a speaker from the Federal Reserve coming, so we hope to see you guys out there for that. And that should be interesting because we haven't had any perspective from the financial industry yet at QUAC, so definitely look out for that. And if you're interested in anything with finance, I'd highly recommend attending. So thank you guys so much, and we will see you next week.